When we want to write the literature review section of a literature review, the literature review has different sections. You have the conceptual review, you have the literature review, you have the empirical review of studies, you have theoretical review or the theoretical framework, then you have the summary or gaps. So we are looking at the literature review sections. Some people call it review of related literature. Whatever the name is, we are now getting into the essence of the work. The aim of a literature review is to find the gaps of other studies so that we can now fill out that gaps with our own study. The whole aim of research is to advance knowledge. So we have to build on what others have done. So to start a literature review, it is very important that you know your objectives. A literature review starts with the objectives of the study. Now, your objectives of the study also flows to your conceptual review. It also flows to the literature review and to some extent the empirical review of studies. So you have your four objectives. Then when you're putting out your literature review, key thing, your literature themes, that is what you're going to develop. Now, the literature themes should be aligned with the research objectives. So, whatever you have as research objective, one, two, three, four, you have to extract literature themes from these objectives. You cannot have literature themes outside the objectives. Why is this important? Because it is from these literature themes that you are going to generate research, that you're going to do your discussion of findings. Do your findings agree with the literature so that when you're doing a discussion of findings, objective one, the findings of objective one, objective two, objective three, objective four, you can now defend them with your own findings and the literature you have found. Now, this is an example of literature themes aligned with the research objectives. Now, 2.3, that's we're um, starting after the conceptual review or the review of concepts. So 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, 2.6 in an ideal chapter 2 project. So features of Facebook to enhance clean water access. So objective 1, evaluate the features of Facebook that makes it suitable or otherwise as a medium to enhance photo voice to build advocacy for clean water access in the community. So you have to extract key variables, key words or phrases that you can use as a literature theme. So you will see literature theme 1, 2.3. We were able to pick Facebook, we were able to pick clean water access, then we were able to, yeah, Facebook and clean water access. So, what are all the literatures that we can find from 2026 to 2016 to 2026 within the 10-year window that are talking about Facebook and clean water access? Now, you see the second objective. We see features of Facebook, sorry, features obsolescing traditional communication cultures. Facebook features obsolescing traditional communication cultures. So we see how does Facebook, we have picked Facebook, obsoletes traditional photo voice. And also it might not be verbatim, it might not be direct, depending on what you're looking for. So the key thing is that we have Facebook, then we have obsolescing, then in definition of terms, traditional communication cultures, we also relate it to maybe photo voice, participatory communication, and the rest. Then objective 3, understand how Facebook as a medium retrieves photo voice. So this is the keyword here, retrieve. So we say Facebook's retrieval of traditional communication cultures. then Facebook as a medium that reverses itself. So when you're choosing your literature theme, make sure the keywords in your objectives are also present in your literature themes. So it brings that alignment in what you are looking for. So these are very, very important. Now, undergraduate research, to some extent masters, you're actually doing a narrative literature review. There are different types of literature review. We have the narrative literature review, we have the systematic literature review, we have the scoping review, we also have the critical review, we have a theoretical review. Now, the narrative literature review, you are just being descriptive, you're not being critical. You're just highlighting the objective or focus of the research. Every research has its merit. Someone out there went ahead, found objectives, engaged his research. So at this stage, we're not criticizing it. We're not bringing out like what are the faults, what are the counter arguments also. At this level is just narrative. We're just describing what the person found. What was the focus of the research? What was the research method? Then to know the research approach and the findings, those are key. Then we review it. What are these limitations? What limitations did you see in that research that has created a knowledge gap for our own objective to fill out? So that our what are the limitations of that research so that our own objectives can fill it out. So it's very key. What we are doing is a narrative literature review. So it's not critical. Um, we are describing what a researcher has done is based on merit. We are not to castigate, we are not to downplay, we are not to show the faults in that. But in the literature, that's why most of them have limitations of study. What are the limitations of the study that we can now further that can inspire our own study? So that is why most researchers will say do a literature review first, do empirical review. Then when you know the gaps, you can now form your objectives. But most times it's the other way around. We choose our objectives, then we now start looking for literature that aligns with them. You're supposed to do a literature review first, empirical review first, of course, all grounded in theory. The lens, the theory is the lens, is the framework, very, very important. Then you can now pick out your objectives, then pick out your topic. Now, in writing, there's always a structure in writing your narrative literature review. There's the topic sentence. That means it's an intro. Of course, you read the whole, not the, you read the work, whether it's a journal or a thesis or dissertation or conference paper. You read maybe key sections, the abstract, the introduction, the findings. If you can read all, fine. Then what is that topic sentence? What is that lead, so to say? So you write out the lead. It's usually a sentence, nothing too bulky. Then what is the key source of the objective? So when you write the lead, you said this is evidenced by the study of, introduce the study that describe what is the key thing of that study, the essence of the study. So you just write it out. Then let's know the research method. We're all about research. What you're doing is a study. We want to know the research method. We want to know the philosophy, the orientation, the research approach, quantitative, qualitative, mixed method, so that it guides us. Let's understand the mind of the researcher. So let's put that there. This study, which was quantitative in approach, use the survey and all. Then it is key. What is the contribution to knowledge? So we are not criticizing, we are not downplaying. What? Let's acknowledge what the person has done. What is that contribution to knowledge? This study adds to the knowledge on different categories of social media overload. Then review, but will benefit from participatory approaches, especially participatory photography, to expand the findings and research scope. So this is what your own study wants to do. If the study used a quantitative approach, you want to use participatory photography as approach. So this is how you write your narrative literature review. Of course, you're not going to put all this. Of course, you're not going to put all this. By the time you have it in a box structured, you remove all this, then of course it comes out clean and all. So another thing in writing your literature, please you present all in literature themes. When you're writing your literature review, you box them by themes. Don't talk about social media exhaustion, then you jump to communication overload, then you come back to jump on to system overload, then you come back to jump to social overload. We want them in categories, in themes, so that there is logic, there is reasoning, there is a line of thought that anybody who is reading it will get the gist of what the research is talking about. So please, you have your research topic, Facebook as a medium that reverses itself. Sorry, the research, the literature theme, you have it. So all studies on social media exhaustion, they could be 2, 3, 4, 5. Make sure all of them are in one place. Using transition words, you go to studies on information overload, let's say 3. You come to studies on system feature overload, let's say another 3, 4, 5. Then you come to social overload, another 3, 4, 5. Then you come to all studies on communication overload. So you arrange your work in themes. So by the time you have like 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, then of course the last paragraph is a synthesis. All these studies, what have you found out? The synthesis of the gaps, these gaps of the review we are talking about. By the time you finish all this, you have a synthesis that will inspire. You write it in a way that, with all the limitations of all these studies, this inspires my objective to find Facebook as a medium that reverses itself. So that is it on how to write a literature review section.